I'm Harper Sullivan, I'm 27, and I'm about to tell you how one condemned house exposed everything toxic about the people who were supposed to love me. But here's the kicker: by the time they came crawling back, begging for a piece of what I built, I'd already learned the most brutal lesson of my life. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. It started at a tax auction. Everyone else saw a rotting death trap. I saw my ticket out of rental hell. My parents, Benjamin and Victoria Harris, they saw it as the ultimate betrayal. Same with my sister Scarlett. See, they had other plans for my 15 grand. Plans that involved bankrolling Scarlett's spiritual journey to Bali. Because apparently my sister finding herself on a beach was more important than me finding a home. When I chose the house over her yoga retreat, my mother's mask slipped. Then live like junk, she spat, her face twisted with pure disgust. You've shamed this family. Those words hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. But they also lit a fire in me that would burn through every obstacle ahead. Sleeping in my car, learning plumbing from YouTube at 2 a.m. and rebuilding my life from the ground up. If you're watching this, drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe, because this story, it has an ending that'll make your jaw drop. Growing up in suburban Chicago taught me one thing fast: nothing comes easy when you're not the favorite. My parents, Benjamin and Victoria, always claimed they were broke. Funny how they always found money for Scarlett's dance classes, summer camps, college tuition. Meanwhile, I was stocking shelves at 16, working before school and weekends just to help keep the lights on. Graduated high school. No college fund waiting, just my dad patting my shoulder saying, "You're smart, Harper, you'll figure it out." So I did. Community college while juggling 2 jobs, morning shifts slinging coffee, evening shifts seating people who could afford to eat out. Every semester was a fight to pay tuition, but I never missed a payment, not once. 3 years later, I had my associate degree in paralegal studies. Not the law degree I dreamed about as a kid, but it was mine. I earned it. Found work at Goldstein and Associates Real Estate Law. Starting salary was nothing special, but it was steady, something I'd never known growing up. For 5 years, I lived like a monk in a studio apartment the size of a closet, secondhand everything. I tracked every damn dollar, no vacations, no dinners out, no new clothes unless the old ones fell apart. My coworkers invited me out, I always said no. Eventually, they stopped asking. Every month, I moved money to savings, watched it grow. $15,000 after 5 years might not sound like much to some people, but to me, that was freedom. That was proof I could break the cycle of financial chaos I'd watched my whole life. Meanwhile, my family kept making the same stupid choices. Dad cycling through jobs, quitting whenever someone disrespected him. Mom maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances, buying new furniture when the old stuff worked fine. And Scarlett, Princess Scarlett, floated through life expecting doors to magically open. She'd always been the golden child. Pretty, charming, knew exactly what to say to get what she wanted. Our parents threw money at her whims: horseback riding, study abroad in Spain, they couldn't afford the works. After college, she lasted about 5 minutes in corporate marketing before deciding it was crushing her spirit. So she quit to find herself. Yoga instructor training, crystal healing workshops, meditation retreats, always searching for the next thing that would make her special without actually working for it. My apartment became my sanctuary: 4th floor walk-up, unreliable heat, bathroom so small I could barely turn around, but it was mine. I filled it with plants and throw pillows from thrift stores, built floating shelves for my growing collection of home improvement books. Every night I fell asleep watching renovation shows on my laptop. I studied those transformations like they were scripture. Ordinary people turning disasters into dream homes. I memorized their techniques: load-bearing walls, electrical systems, the right way to lay tile. My browser history was nothing but tutorials: patching drywall, refinishing floors, installing outlets. I was obsessed. Chicago's housing market was insane, but I wasn't giving up. I researched every first-time buyer program, every assistance option. The numbers never worked on my salary. That's when I found an article about tax auctions. Properties selling for pennies on the dollar, foreclosures, abandoned houses. The catch: most had serious problems: structural damage, tax liens, code violations. Some needed immediate repairs just to be habitable. It was risky as hell, but the more I researched, the more convinced I became this was my shot. For months, I went to auctions just to watch, studied the players. Learned which properties got attention and which ones everyone avoided. I researched neighborhoods, property values, development plans. I learned about permits, building codes, repair costs. Then I saw it. One Tuesday, scrolling auction listings during lunch break, a small house on the west side. Opening bid $900 for an entire house. My heart hammered against my ribs. Built in the 1940s, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Currently uninhabitable. I closed my laptop and sat perfectly still. This was it. This was my chance. I marked the date on my calendar with shaking hands, requested the day off. For the first time in years, I felt something I'd forgotten existed: hope. The house looked like a horror movie set: paint peeling like diseased skin, porch sagging, ready to collapse, windows boarded up or shattered. The yard was a jungle of weeds up to my waist. I pressed my face to a grimy window and looked inside. Water damage everywhere, ceilings stained and sagging, floors buckling, walls with holes you could put your fist through. A raccoon had been living in what used to be the kitchen. You really want to bid on this place? Logan Barrett, the city inspector, looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I'd helped him with paperwork enough times that he owed me a favor. I know it looks bad. Bad. Honey, this is condemned for a reason. Roof's shot, plumbing's probably toast. Electrical's definitely not up to code. I'm betting there's asbestos in the walls and lead paint everywhere. I nodded, cataloging every issue. What about the foundation? Logan walked the perimeter. Actually not terrible, some settling but no major cracks, that's something. My friend Mason Cross showed up an hour later, he's a contractor. Whistled low when he saw the place. You've got guts, Harper, this is serious. But he walked through carefully, testing floors, examining ceilings. The bones aren't terrible, good ceiling height, original hardwood under this nasty carpet, layout makes sense. By the end, I had 8 pages of notes and an estimate that made my stomach flip. Even doing most of the work myself, I'd need at least 12 grand for critical repairs. Almost my entire savings. But I also learned the neighborhood was turning around. Craft brewery 3 blocks over, farm-to-table restaurant under construction, young families buying and fixing up the better houses nearby. I spent the next week researching everything. No liens beyond unpaid taxes. Zoning allowed residential during renovation. City plans showed improvements coming, better lighting, repaved sidewalks, a park within walking distance. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. Mom insisted I come Sunday. Family dinner is mandatory. No room for argument. I walked into the usual scene. Dad watching football, Mom making her signature lasagna, Scarlett sweeping in 20 minutes late, filling the room with expensive perfume. You'll never believe what happened, Scarlett announced as we sat down. I got accepted to the Sacred Spirit Yoga Immersion in Bali, most exclusive retreat ever. Only 20 people worldwide were chosen. My parents practically orgasmed with pride. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Mom cooed, giving Scarlett the biggest portion. When do you leave? 6 weeks. Month-long program with amazing teachers, eco huts on the beach, sunrise yoga. Ancient healing techniques. Scarlett's eyes were shining. Only thing is it costs $3,000, not including airfare. I nearly choked on my water. 3 grand for yoga on a beach, more than 3 months of my rent. That's a lot of money, princess, Dad said slowly. Scarlett's face crumpled like a paper bag. I knew you'd say that. This is once-in-a-lifetime spiritual growth and all you care about is money. Mom reached over to pat her hand. No one's saying you can't go, we'll figure it out. Dad sighed, nodded, of course we will. Actually, Mom continued, turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I thought maybe we could all contribute. If Harper and Dad and I each put in 1,000, we can make it happen. I set my fork down carefully. You want me to give Scarlett $1,000 for yoga? 1,500 actually. Your father and I can only manage 1,500 together with his hours being cut. Scarlett reached across to squeeze my hand. It would mean everything, Harper. This could be my future. I might become a certified international instructor. I pulled my hand away. Scarlett, I'm saving for something important. More important than your sister's dreams? Mom's voice had an edge now. I took a breath. I found a house. I'm bidding on it next week. Silence. Then Dad laughed. A house with what money? Opening bid is $900. Their faces went blank, then horrified. It needs work, I rushed to explain. A lot of work, but I've been researching, planning. I can do most of the renovation myself. The neighborhood's improving. $900 for a house, Mom interrupted. What kind of house costs $900? It must be falling down. It's a fixer-upper, but a fixer-upper? Scarlett laughed. You mean a total disaster. You don't know anything about renovation. I've been studying. I have connections who can help. Mom slammed her wine glass down. Red liquid sloshed over the rim. So instead of helping your sister achieve her dreams, you want to waste your money on some condemned property. It's not a waste, it's an investment in my future. Financial independence. Financial independence, Mom repeated mockingly. Listen to you, always so practical and boring. Meanwhile, your sister's trying to follow her passion. My passion is having a home of my own, something no one can take away from me. That's when it all went to hell. Scarlett alternated between guilt trips and insults. Mom got sharper with every exchange, listing why my plan would fail. Dad stayed quiet, occasionally trying to change the subject but ultimately siding with them. You've always been like this, Mom finally snapped. Cold, calculating, no wonder you don't have friends or a boyfriend. All you care about is money and your precious independence. Her words cut deep, but I stayed composed. That's not fair. I've worked hard for everything I have, while Scarlett's she has dreams. Mom stood up, hands pressed against the table. Passion, all you have is a spreadsheet and now some worthless property you'll pour money into until you're bankrupt. At least I'll have tried to build something instead of expecting others to fund my lifestyle. Mom's face went dark. If you think that junk house is more important than family, then go, live in your junk, see how far independence gets you when you need help. Victoria, Dad cautioned. No, Benjamin, she's made her choice, garbage over her sister's happiness. She turned back to me, eyes flashing. Then live like junk, you've shamed this family. I looked to Dad, hoping for support. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Scarlett sobbed into her napkin like she was auditioning for a soap opera. I think you should leave, Mom continued. Don't come back until you sort out your priorities. The silence was deafening. I gathered my things with shaking hands. Dignity was all I had left. You're making a mistake, Harper, Scarlett called as I headed for the door. That house will ruin you and we won't be there to pick up the pieces. I paused at the threshold. I never asked you to pick up the pieces, I just wanted you to believe in me. I drove away with tears blurring my vision. The weight of what happened pressed against my chest like a stone, disowned over $900 in a broken-down house. The family I'd tried so hard to please had thrown me away for choosing my dream over Scarlett's. I had nowhere to go but my new property, parked in the weed-choked driveway staring at the dark shape against the twilight sky. My house. The challenge ahead suddenly felt crushing. I'd already given notice on my apartment, planning to stay with my parents while making the house livable. That option was gone. I had 2 weeks before I was homeless. That night I slept in my car outside my uninhabitable house. Reclined the driver's seat, covered myself with the emergency blanket from my trunk. Tears slid down my temples as I drifted off. But beneath the hurt and fear, something stubborn burned inside me. I would make this work, I had to. The morning of the auction, I woke before my alarm, stomach churning with excitement and terror. I dressed like I was going to court, navy blazer, white blouse, black slacks, projecting confidence I didn't feel. The auction was in a fluorescent-lit room at the county building. 30 people milling around with clipboards and tablets, developers, investors, and a few desperate souls like me. I registered. Got bidder number 43, found a seat in the back. Maximum bid $1,500, not a penny more no matter what. The auctioneer was machine gun fast, no patience for hesitation. The first properties went quick. Commercial lots, nice houses in good areas, apartment buildings. Big money, serious bidders. My hands were sweating when he got to lot 37, my house. Starting bid 900, do I have 900? I raised my paddle with a trembling hand. 900 from number 43, do I have 1,000? I scanned the room, waiting for someone else to bid. Seconds stretched like hours. 900 going once, going twice, no one else wanted it. Sold for $900 to bidder number 43. The rush of adrenaline made my ears ring. I'd done it, I owned a house. For less than most people spend on a couch, I was a property owner. The paperwork took forever. Document after document, paid the 900 plus fees, got the deed and tax information. 30 days to fix the most critical violations before city inspection. I floated through the rest of the day, swinging between elation and panic. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. Despite everything, I hoped they might be happy for me. I couldn't have been more wrong. You actually went through with it. Mom's voice rose in disbelief. You bought a condemned house instead of helping your sister. Mom, it's my money. This is important to me. More important than family? Scarlett asked, tears already welling. I needed you, Harper. This retreat could have changed my life. This house will change my life. I'm sorry about your retreat, but you'll find another opportunity. Dad finally spoke. How bad is this place really? I pulled out my phone to show photos. Mom snatched it from my hands and gasped as she swiped through the images. This isn't a house, Harper. This is a death trap. Are those actual holes in the ceiling? Yes, but you chose this junk heap over your sister's spiritual growth. She passed the phone to Dad, who winced. It's not just about Scarlett's retreat. This is about my future, financial security, building equity instead of paying rent. Building equity? Mom laughed harshly. You'll be lucky if that place doesn't collapse on your head. What do you know about renovation? You can barely hang a picture. The argument escalated fast. Mom's voice got shriller. Scarlett cried openly, accusing me of being selfish and cold. Dad mostly stayed silent, occasionally trying to moderate but ultimately taking their side. You've always been like this, Mom finally exploded. Cold, calculating, no wonder you don't have friends or a boyfriend. All you care about is money and your precious independence. The words cut deep, but I stayed composed. That's not fair. I've worked hard for everything I have, while Scarlett has just— Mom stood up. She has dreams, Harper, passion. All you have is a spreadsheet and now a worthless property you'll bankrupt yourself on. At least I'm trying to build something instead of expecting others to fund my lifestyle. Mom's face went nuclear. If you think that junk house is more important than family, then go live in your junk. See how far independence gets you when you need help. Victoria, Dad warned. No, Benjamin, she's made her choice. Garbage over her sister's happiness. She turned back to me. Then live like junk. You've shamed this family with your selfishness. I looked to Dad one last time. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Scarlett was sobbing dramatically. I think you should leave, Mom continued. Don't come back until you've sorted out your priorities. The silence that followed was crushing. I gathered my things, hands shaking. Dignity was all I had left. You're making a mistake, Harper, Scarlett called as I reached the door. That house will ruin you and we won't be there to pick up the pieces. I paused. I never asked you to pick up the pieces. All I wanted was for you to believe in me. I drove away with tears streaming down my face. The full weight crashed down on me. I'd been disowned over $900 in a dilapidated house. The family I'd always tried to please had cast me out for choosing my dream over Scarlett's. I drove to my new property. Parked in the weedy driveway, staring at the dark shape of the house. My house. The enormity of the challenge hit me. I'd planned to stay with my parents while making the house livable. That was gone. 2 weeks before I had to leave my apartment and know where to go. That night, I slept in my car parked outside my uninhabitable house. Reclined the seat, covered myself with an emergency blanket. Tears slid down my face as I fell asleep. But underneath the hurt and fear, something stubborn kept burning. I would make this work. I had to. Next morning, I woke stiff and disoriented, breath fogging the windows. Reality crashed back the house, the family fight, sleeping in my car. I sat up, neck screaming, and looked at my property in harsh morning light. It looked even worse than before. I called in sick to work, something I'd never done without being actually sick, and drove to a diner. Over endless coffee, I made a plan on my laptop. First priority, one room livable within 2 weeks. After breakfast, hardware store. $300 on essentials, trash bags, work gloves, dust masks, shop vacuum, basic tools, cleaning supplies, padlock for the front door. Back to the house. Ready to tackle step 1, clearing out the garbage. 3 days straight, dawn to dusk. Bag after bag of debris, rotted furniture, sodden cardboard, animal droppings, moldy clothes the previous owners had abandoned. Mountains of junk. Each dumpster trip felt like a small victory, revealing more of the house's bones. Day 4, I discovered the first major problem. What I thought was a water stain on the living room ceiling was actually extensive roof damage. When I poked it with a broomstick, chunks of plaster crashed down, nearly hitting me. I could see daylight through the hole. The entire roof needed replacing before the rainy season. I called Mason in a panic. "Take a breath, Harper," he said after I explained. "Roofs are expensive, but we can patch it temporarily. I'll stop by this weekend." True to his word, Mason showed up Saturday morning with tarps and supplies. Taught me about load-bearing walls, safe material removal, temporary patches for the worst leaks. By Sunday evening, the house was at least protected from the elements. With my apartment lease ending, I focused on making the smallest bedroom habitable, scrubbed walls and floors with bleach, sealed window gaps with caulk and plastic sheeting. Rigged a space heater to a working outlet, far from comfortable, but it would keep me from sleeping in my car. My boss, Mr. Goldstein, noticed my exhaustion. When I reluctantly explained, he surprised me. "My daughter renovated a fixer-upper last year. Take Fridays off for the next month, paid leave, just make it up handling the Westfield closing when you're back to normal hours." That kindness almost broke me. With Fridays free and weekends dedicated to the house, I made steady progress. Learned to handle a reciprocating saw, remove damaged drywall, cap leaking pipes, basic electrical safety, but setbacks kept mounting. Ancient plumbing crumbled when I tried to restore water. Electrical panel needed complete replacement. Termites had damaged floor joists in the kitchen. Each discovery ate my savings faster than planned. To generate extra income, I took freelance paralegal work evenings and weekends. Also delivered food for an app 3 nights a week after my regular job. My social life, already minimal, disappeared completely. Every spare dollar and minute went into the house. The neighbors, initially wary of the single woman tackling such a massive project alone, gradually became curious, then supportive. Mrs. Hernandez next door brought homemade tamales and advice about the city inspector. Mr. Peterson across the street lent tools and helped figure out why the bathroom faucets mysteriously stopped working. 6 weeks after buying the house, I'd converted the smallest bedroom into livable space. Real bed mattress on the floor, working electricity in 3 rooms, intermittent cold water. I set up a camping stove in what would be the kitchen. Used a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat as a makeshift bathroom, emptying it daily into the sewer cleanout in the yard. Humbling doesn't begin to describe it, but it strengthened my resolve to get proper plumbing working soon. I documented everything meticulously, before and after photos of each improvement. When I was particularly proud of something, I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text Mom or Scarlett before remembering. Those moments still stung, but less sharply as weeks passed. Summer turned to fall, bringing new challenges. The patch roof leaked again during heavy October rains. The ancient furnace failed just as temperatures dropped. I spent one miserable week sleeping in a nest of blankets before scraping together money for a better space heater. Thanksgiving approached, my first major holiday, estranged from family. No invitation. No calls to check if I was even alive. Despite Mrs. Hernandez's kind offer to join her family, I chose to work through the holiday. Used the day off to finally install proper drywall in the main bedroom. Working alone on Thanksgiving, I allowed myself a good cry. Mourning the family relationships I'd lost while acknowledging they'd always been conditional on me playing a specific role. The tears cleaned something inside me. Washed away expectations that had never truly been mine. By December, my savings had dwindled to almost nothing, but the house was starting to resemble a home. One functioning bathroom, electricity throughout, second-hand kitchen sink installed. The roof still needed professional attention, but my patches were holding. I slept on a real bed frame instead of a mattress on the floor. Small victories, but significant ones. Christmas arrived with fresh melancholy. I'd always helped Mom decorate the tree, wrap presents, prepare traditional dishes. This year, I bought myself a tiny potted pine and placed it in my partially renovated living room. Wrapped one present for myself, specialized tools for the bathroom tile project I planned next. Christmas Eve, I drove past my parents' house, slowed to see the familiar decorations and lights. Cars lined the driveway, extended family gathering as always. I didn't stop. Instead, I returned to my drafty half-finished house and continued installing kitchen cabinets I'd found at Habitat for Humanity Race Store. Working into the night, I realized something important. Despite everything, the cold, setbacks, financial stress, family estrangement, I was proud of what I'd accomplished. 6 months ago, this place was condemned. Now, against all odds, it was becoming home. My home. 8 months after buying my junk house, the transformation was remarkable. What had been condemned was now recognizably a home. Exterior painted a warm sage green with crisp white trim. The sagging porch rebuilt with reclaimed lumber, featuring a comfortable swing where I enjoyed morning coffee. New windows replaced the broken ones, flooding the interior with natural light. Inside, the changes were even more dramatic. I taught myself to refinish the original hardwood floors, bringing out a warm honey color hidden beneath years of neglect. The kitchen, once a raccoon playground, now featured cabinets rescued from race store trips, painted cheerful blue, topped with butcher block counters I'd built from discarded bowling alley lanes. My renovation education came from YouTube tutorials, library books, and generous neighbors. I discovered I had natural aptitude for tile work, creating a stunning mosaic bathroom floor from broken tiles collected from construction dumpsters. I could rewire a light fixture following detailed online instructions, but plumbing still occasionally reduced me to frustrated tears. The local building inspector, initially skeptical, became an unexpected ally. Most people would have given up months ago, he admitted during one inspection. You've got real grit, young lady. My neighbors, seeing my dedication, began offering substantial help. Mr. Peterson taught me proper drywall, mudding, and taping. Mrs. Hernandez's son, a landscaper, helped clear the overgrown yard and plant a small vegetable garden. The retired contractor 3 doors down gave me a crash course in window installation when I found perfectly good windows discarded behind a home improvement store. The most unexpected support came from a local journalist who knocked on my door one Saturday morning. She'd heard about my project from the building inspector and wanted to write a feature for the neighborhood paper. Initially reluctant, I finally agreed to share my story. When the article appeared, From Condemned to Cozy, How One Woman Saved a Neighborhood Eyesore, I was unprepared for the response. Neighbors I'd never met stopped by to introduce themselves. Local businesses offered material discounts. A small but growing social media following developed after I created an account documenting my renovation journey. As spring arrived, I channeled energy into the previously neglected yard. Cleared decades of overgrowth, uncovering a charming brick pathway and remnants of what had been a rose garden. With donated plants from neighbors and seeds I'd started indoors during winter, I transformed the jungle into an oasis of flowers, vegetables, and herbs. The garden became my therapy. After long days at the law firm, I'd lose myself for hours in the simple pleasure of nurturing growing things. The rhythmic work of weeding and watering soothed the lingering hurt of family estrangement. I hadn't spoken to my parents or sister since that fateful dinner nearly a year ago. As my house and garden blossomed, so did the surrounding neighborhood. The brewery 3 blocks away expanded with an outdoor patio. The farm-to-table restaurant opened to rave reviews. A coffee shop and bookstore combination replaced a long-abandoned laundromat. Property values began climbing as more young professionals discovered the area's charm and affordability. My own property value had increased dramatically. What had been worth maybe $20,000 in its condemned state was now conservatively valued at over $100,000. I received my first offer from a developer in June. $65,000 cash, no inspection required. I politely declined, though the offer was tempting. This house represented more than financial investment. It had become the physical manifestation of my independence and resilience. Every repaired wall, every carefully painted trim board, every garden bed contained pieces of my heart and countless hours of labor. This was home in a way no other place had ever been. One evening, as I watered my thriving garden, a familiar car pulled into my driveway. My sister Scarlett stepped out, looking uncertain and slightly uncomfortable in designer yoga pants and an expensive tank top. I hadn't seen her since our family falling out, though I'd occasionally glimpsed her life through mutual acquaintances' social media posts. "Nice house," she said, glancing around with poorly concealed surprise. "It looks really different." "Thanks, what brings you by?" Scarlett shifted her weight. "I just got back from Bali last week." I raised an eyebrow. "The retreat was 10 months ago," she looked away. "I ended up staying, teaching at a yoga studio there. It didn't work out." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Scarlett sighed. "I moved back in with Mom and Dad just temporarily until I figure out my next steps." I nodded, unsurprised. The pattern was familiar. Scarlett trying something new, it not meeting her expectations, our parents providing a soft landing. "Do you want to come in for tea?" I offered, deciding to be the bigger person. Inside, Scarlett's eyes widened as she took in the transformation. "Wow, this looks nothing like those pictures Mom showed everyone. She said you were living in squalor." I laughed despite myself. It was pretty close to squalor for the first few months, but it's come a long way. Over tea at my handmade dining table, Scarlett filled me in on the past year. The Bali retreat had been amazing but led to her impulsively quitting her job completely and staying to become a yoga instructor at the resort. Eventually, the reality of Bali's low wages and high competition in the expat yoga community had sent her home broke and disillusioned. Mom and Dad are having money problems, she confided, tracing the rim of her mug. Dad's hours got cut again and Mom had to get a part-time job at the mall. They had to help me with a plane ticket home. I absorbed this information silently, feeling a complex mixture of sympathy and vindication. Your place is really coming together, Scarlett said, changing the subject. That article about you was all over Facebook. Mom saw it but pretended she didn't. As Scarlett prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. They miss you, in their way, too stubborn to admit it, but they do, I smiled sadly. I miss them too, but I can't go back to how things were. After she left, I sat on my porch swing, watching fireflies emerge in the summer twilight. Something told me this unexpected visit was just the beginning. 3 days after Scarlett's visit, my mother appeared on my doorstep unannounced. She wore her Sunday church outfit and carried a pie I immediately recognized as store-bought, despite the plate from her kitchen. What a charming color, she said by way of greeting, gesturing to my sage green exterior. Her tone suggested mild surprise, as if she'd expected to find me living in a cardboard box. I invited her in, maintaining polite distance as she inspected every corner of my home. Her expression fluctuated between reluctant admiration and searching for flaws. She ran a finger along a windowsill, perhaps hoping to find dust. You've been busy, she finally admitted, setting the pie on my kitchen counter. It's nicer than I expected. Thank you, I replied, not adding that her expectations had been incredibly low to begin with. We sat awkwardly in my living room, making stilted conversation about neutral topics: the weather, her church group, a cousin's new baby. She asked nothing about my renovation process or how I'd managed a loan. I didn't volunteer the information. Finally, she set down her untouched tea. Scarlett tells me you fixed this place up quite nicely. The neighborhood's improving too, from what I hear. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. She also mentioned you might have received offers to sell. Her attempt at casualness failed entirely. A few, I'm not interested, my mother sighed, abandoning pretense. Harper, your father's hours have been reduced again. The company's not doing well. We had to help Scarlett with her plane ticket home, and you know how tight things always are. I'm sorry to hear that. That retreat was a complete waste of money, she continued, frustration evident. She spent most of her time partying with other foreigners instead of becoming a certified instructor like she promised. Now she's home with no job, no plans, and no money. I suppressed a comment about how predictable this outcome had been. She'll figure something out. Scarlett always lands on her feet. My mother leaned forward, suddenly intense. The thing is, if you were to sell this house now while the market's good, you could make quite a profit. Enough to help your father and me through this rough patch. We're family after all. The audacity of her request stunned me into momentary silence. After disowning me for not funding Scarlett's failed adventure, she now expected me to sell my home, the project I'd poured my heart, soul, and every spare dollar into, to bail them out. Let me understand, I said slowly. You kicked me out of the family for buying this house instead of paying for Scarlett's retreat. You said I should live like junk because I chose this place over her. You haven't checked on me once in almost a year, and now you want me to sell my home to solve your financial problems. My mother had the grace to look slightly embarrassed but quickly rallied. Families forgive each other, Harper. Yes, things were said in the heat of the moment, but blood is thicker than water. We need to stick together through hard times. Where was that family loyalty when I was sleeping in my car because you threw me out? She flinched. You slept in your car, why didn't you say something? Would you have cared, or would you have told me I deserved it for choosing junk over Scarlett? My mother stood abruptly. I can see this was a mistake. You always were stubborn and unforgiving. I'm not the unforgiving one, I replied, remaining seated. I just won't be used when it's convenient and discarded when it's not. As she headed for the door, I added, for what it's worth, I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean allowing the same patterns to continue. 2 days later, Scarlett called to inform me our mother had returned home in tears, claiming I'd been cruel and ungrateful. She really thought you would help, Scarlett said. She's been bragging to her friends about how successful you've become with your house project. Bragging? I laughed incredulously. After telling everyone I was living in squalor, you know, Mom, the narrative changes depending on what she needs in the moment. The following weekend, my father showed up with a toolbox and an awkward smile. Thought you might need some help with odd jobs, he offered. Unlike my mother, my father seemed genuinely impressed by what I'd accomplished. He walked through each room asking questions about how I'd solved various problems, occasionally nodding with approval. You did all this yourself? He asked as we stood in the kitchen. Most of it. Neighbors helped with some bigger projects. I learned a lot from YouTube. He shook his head in wonder. Your mother never mentioned how much you'd done. This is remarkable, Harper. We spent the afternoon replacing a stubborn bathroom faucet, working in comfortable silence punctuated by requests for tools. As we washed up afterward, he finally addressed the elephant in the room. I should have stood up for you, he said quietly. That night I knew you were making a smart choice, but I took the path of least resistance. I'm sorry. His apology, simple and direct, meant more than I'd expected. Thank you for saying that. He dried his hands slowly. Things are tough at home, not just money, though that's part of it. Your mother and I, we enabled Scarlett for too long. We're paying for it now. Mom asked me to sell the house. He winced. I told her not to do that. This place, what you've created here, it's worth protecting. He hesitated before adding, I'm proud of you, kiddo, always have been, even when I didn't show it. As he prepared to leave, I made an impulsive decision. I can't sell, but I might have another idea. The property next door is going up for auction next month. Similar condition to this place when I started. If you're interested in a project, I could use a partner with construction experience. My father's eyes widened. You mean buy it together, fix it up? Exactly. Split the investment, split the work, split the profit when we sell or rent it out. But I need a partner I can trust, someone who will show up. He stood straighter, something like hope crossing his face. I wouldn't let you down. The next evening, Scarlett appeared again, this time with an agenda. Dad told me about your house flipping idea, she said without preamble. I want in too. I invited her inside skeptically. Do you know anything about renovation? I can learn, she insisted. I'm great with design and staging, plus I can manage social media to document the project, build a following like you have. We could turn this into a real business, the three of us. I studied my sister's face, searching for signs of her typical fleeting enthusiasm. This is hard work, Scarlett. Physically demanding, frustrating, and sometimes gross. No glamour, just sweat and sore muscles. I know that, she said defensively. I'm not completely useless. I never said you were useless, just that you tend to start things with great excitement and abandon them when they become difficult. She looked away. I'm trying to change that. The Bali thing, it was a wake-up call. I wasted everyone's money and have nothing to show for it. She met my eyes again. You followed through on something hard and look what you created. I want to learn how to do that too. I remained unconvinced. What does Mom think about this plan? Scarlett rolled her eyes. She hates it, says Dad's having a midlife crisis and I'm just copying you because I don't have my own identity. I laughed despite myself. At least she's consistent. After Scarlett left, I sat on my porch swing, considering the unexpected turn of events. My father seeking redemption through partnership. My sister possibly maturing, possibly just finding a new temporary enthusiasm. My mother still manipulative, but now relegated to the sidelines as the family dynamic shifted. 1 year ago, I'd been disowned for choosing this house. Now my family wanted in on what I'd built, some with genuine respect, others perhaps with ulterior motives. The irony wasn't lost on me. As fireflies blinked in my garden, I contemplated what kind of relationship I wanted with my family moving forward. Boundaries would be essential, clear expectations and consequences, no more sacrificing my dreams to maintain peace. But perhaps on new and healthier terms, there was a path forward together. 1 year after buying my junk house, I stood in the freshly landscaped backyard hosting a housewarming party. String lights twinkled overhead, mixing with the scent of grilling food and the roses I'd coaxed back to life. Neighbors, coworkers, and new friends mingled in the space I'd created, many having contributed to the transformation. My house was unrecognizable from the condemned property I'd purchased. Every surface had been renewed, repaired, or thoughtfully replaced. The rooms flowed together in a palette of soft greens, warm woods, and crisp whites. Vintage finds and handmade touches personalized each space. It wasn't just habitable, it was beautiful. A home that reflected both my practical nature and newfound creativity. The neighborhood had continued its upward trajectory. Property values had nearly doubled in the past year as more young professionals and families discovered the area's charm and convenience. 3 more abandoned houses on my street had been purchased and were undergoing renovation. A community garden had replaced a vacant lot 2 blocks away. Most significantly, the property next door was now a busy construction site. True to his word, my father had partnered with me to purchase it at auction. Every weekend and many evenings, we worked side by side, stripping it to the studs and rebuilding room by room. Our contrasting skills complemented each other perfectly, his decades of practical knowledge balancing my research-based approach. To everyone's surprise, including mine, Scarlett had actually followed through on her promise to help. After several false starts and dramatic complaints about the physical demands, she'd found her niche in design decisions and unexpectedly electrical work. Something about the precise, systematic nature of wiring appealed to her, and she'd taken classes at the community college to learn proper techniques. Your house is amazing, said Mrs. Hernandez, joining me by the grill. I remember when you first moved in, sleeping in your car, using that bucket toilet. Look at you now. I laughed, no longer embarrassed by those humble beginnings. I couldn't have done it without neighbors like you. You did the work, she insisted. We just provided the occasional tamale and moral support. Across the yard, I spotted my father deep in conversation with Mr. Peterson about the merits of different insulation types. He caught my eye and raised his drink in acknowledgement. Our relationship had been rebuilt alongside the houses we worked on together, more honest, more equal, and stronger than before. My mother had eventually come around in her own way. While she never directly apologized for disowning me, she'd gradually shifted from dismissing my junk house to bragging about her daughter's investment property to her friends. Tonight, she fluttered around the party arranging food platters and taking credit for my natural eye for design, which she claimed I'd inherited from her. I let her have her narrative. Our relationship remained complicated, but I'd learned to set boundaries that protected my well-being while allowing her to remain in my life. I no longer sought her approval or adjusted my dreams to match her expectations. Scarlett approached carrying a business card she designed. "What do you think? Too much?" The card read Phoenix Properties from ashes to amazing with our three names listed as partners. The logo featured a stylized house with flames transforming into a garden. "I like it," I said sincerely, "but we haven't even finished the first project together." "Always thinking ahead," she replied with a grin. The social media accounts already have 2,000 followers. People love watching the transformation. I shook my head in amusement but pocketed the card. In truth, our sibling renovation company had real potential. The second property was coming along nicely and would likely sell for a significant profit. We'd already identified a third potential project on the next block. As twilight deepened, I found a quiet moment alone on my porch swing. 1 year ago, I'd slept in my car outside a condemned house, disowned by my family and questioning my decision. Today, that $900 junk house was worth over $150,000. More importantly, it had transformed me alongside its transformation. I discovered strengths I never knew I possessed: physical stamina, creative problem solving, the ability to persevere through setbacks. I'd built a community of supportive neighbors who became friends. I'd learned that sometimes losing what you thought you needed creates space for what you truly want. My family relationships had evolved in unexpected ways. My father and I had developed a genuine partnership based on mutual respect. Scarlett and I had found common ground in shared goals. Even my mother, in her complicated way, had adjusted to my independence. Most surprisingly, I discovered joy in the process of creation, turning damaged things into something beautiful and functional. What had begun as a practical financial decision had awakened a passion for transformation that now guided my future plans. As guests began to depart, my father joined me on the porch swing. "Remember when your mother said to live like junk?" he asked quietly. I nodded, the memory no longer carrying its former sting. "I think about that sometimes," he continued. "How she meant it as an insult, but you turned it into something else entirely. You didn't just fix up a house, you built a life on your own terms." It was never about the house, I realized aloud. It was about believing I could create something valuable from something others had discarded, including myself. My father squeezed my shoulder gently. "I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." Later that night, after all the guests had gone, I walked through my home, turning off lights. In each room, I paused to remember its original state and appreciate the journey of its transformation. The house that had once been called junk had become a symbol of possibility and the catalyst for rebuilding not just walls and floors, but myself and my most important relationships. I stepped out onto my porch one last time before bed, looking up at the stars visible between city lights. The path hadn't been easy or straight, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. Have you ever had someone dismiss your dreams only to want in once you succeeded? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of transformation resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to see more stories of resilience and growth. Share with someone who might need encouragement to follow their own path, even when others can't see its value. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, sometimes what others call junk might just be the foundation of something beautiful in the right hands.